And a very happy Tuesday to you at 12:07 in the West. Talk Radio 790 KABC, the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wang's in Culver City.
John, Tuesdays are very special days because Tuesdays are when former Alameda County District Attorney Pamela Price drops a new podcast, which is a weekly airing of the grievances. And she's got a lot of bones to pick with everyone, including in her recurring segment, Correct the Record.
So let's move on to Correct the Record. The greatest Jedi mind trick ever. She doesn't care about victims.
You know what this reminds me of?
What's that?
I can't do math. All I can do is add, subtract, multiply, and divide, and that's it. And when you start giving me sine and cosine and fractions and geometry and trigonometry and calculus, you lose me. Actually, you never even had me. So one of the things that I did when I was in high school was I took a math class at the local junior college to get all of those credits out of the way. And the professor of the math class at the junior college used to constantly tell us that he never took his Christmas tree down. He kept his Christmas tree up in his house 24/7, 365, and that baby was never going in the attic. And I listened to this podcast from former Alameda County District Attorney Pamela Price, and I want to say that there's a Festivus pole up at her house that never goes down, ever.
She doesn't care about victims.
Of course, the original Correct the Record was...
She called me a crime boss.
I'm telling you, if you listen to this podcast while you exercise, you're going to end up looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Quite frankly.
And Randy, it was an entire podcast of an airing of the grievances.
Pamela Price has a lot of bones to pick with every elected official and every person who ever ran for office that isn't her in Alameda County and the city of Oakland, because Pamela Price believes she's the only one that isn't corrupt.
And she's going out scorched earth.
Let's hear what Pammy had to say on the pod.
But we know that political corruption in Oakland did not start with former Mayor Shang Tao, and it did not end.
Aw, Shangy.
And it sounds like she has the receipts.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, you keep talking about her like this, Pammy. She's never going to come on your podcast.
Okay, let's just explore something here for a second. If there is so much corruption going on in Oakland, which I believe to be true, and I think you do too, and she is the former district attorney of Alameda County, and she's aware of it, in theory, wasn't her job to expose and prosecute it while she was in office?
Well, allegedly, one of those corrupt people, when he got pinched, she offered if he would give her $25,000 to fight the recall, she would drop the charges against him.
She called me a crime boss.
Of course, Pamela Price denies that.
And she regards herself as being the one virtuous one in Alameda County.
Yep. And it was the corrupt system that brought her down, not the explosion in crime, which she says you cannot blame on her.
It's wild, wild west out here.
In fact, in 2022, many people voted for Shang Tao instead of her opponents because they also had the stench of political corruption.
Everyone in that race was corrupt. Everyone in that race was corrupt.
On that point, I'm inclined to believe her.
In 2018, then Mayor Libby Schaaf worked overtime to violate and circumvent campaign finance laws and raise thousands of dollars to remove then City Councilwoman Desley Brooks from the District 6 seat. According to the Oakland Public Ethics Committee, Schaaf secretly ran an independent expenditure committee called Oaklanders for Responsible Leadership that spent $195,000 to remove Brooks and elect Lauren Taylor.
Oh, so Lauren Taylor's the actual corrupt one.
What's interesting is one of the points that Shang made over and over and over again when she was accused of corruption was, I'm not doing anything that everyone else hasn't already done. And by everyone else, she means previous mayors that include Libby Schaaf.
She wanted to get hers like everyone else has been getting theirs in Oakland. Sheng is not solely responsible for the destruction of that city, and she's the one that got pinched over it. I kind of see her side on this.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Taylor was often referred to as Libby's man in that election at the time.
So is this podcast now Pamela Price's campaign to get Barbara Lee elected?
I don't know if it's a campaign to get Barbara Lee elected or a campaign to get all these other people prosecuted.
She could have prosecuted them when she was in charge.
He was elected to his city council seat as a direct result of the political corruption of former Mayor Libby Schaaf. While Taylor apparently was not accused or implicated in any of the political shenanigans that
You're just throwing shade at him for no reason except for he's currently running for mayor of Oakland.
Yeah, she doesn't want him.
that got him elected, he definitely was the beneficiary of the political corruption.
Well, she also doesn't like Lauren Taylor because Lauren Taylor, when he lost to Sheng Tao in round 9 of ranked choice voting, called out how stupid ranked choice voting is.
Every time you say that man's name, I think you're referring to Lawrence Taylor, the former NFL star who beat Bam Bam Bigelow at WrestleMania.
And the bitter fruit of corruption in Oakland. Ultimately, when Schaaf's proliferation of illegal campaign operations and finance schemes was uncovered, it resulted in fines to her, the Oakland Police Officers Association, the Oakland Chamber of Commerce.
They're all corrupt.
Everyone except her.
Lyft, and a host of other folks who were all implicated in the schemes. You know, one of the most profound observations by my guest, Pamela Drake, was that the moneyed interests that have now come to Oakland were not able to buy elections, but they could buy recalls.
They bought Sheng Tao's election.
That's how she got into office in a very close race, remember?
According to Pamela Price, the real corrupt ones are the people funding the recalls, the people who organized the recalls, the people who collected signature on the recalls. That's the actual corruption.
Not the Dong family, not the family who got raided by the FBI, who are now facing federal charges.
When you talk about independent expenditure committees, these are committees that are not supposed to coordinate with a candidate. They can be funded by anybody. They have unlimited amounts of money to spend. And one of the key differences between a recall and an actual election when it comes to campaign finance.
She's going to be bitter forever about this.
Oh. If you ask her what's the weather like today, she's going to start complaining about the people who kicked her out of office.
Is that the rules are different. And so the disclosures that
this is such a common thing that we heard it from Barbara Lee before the recall. We heard it from Sheng Tao. We heard it from Pamela Price. Recalls are anti-democratic. They're literally in the California Constitution.
And they were put there for a reason. Do you know the history behind why we have direct democracy in California?
Why don't you tell us?
Okay. So direct democracy is the initiative, the referendum, the recall. And it was put in the California Constitution by our progressive reformers. And the reason that they did it was because the legislature at the time was a puppet of the railroads, which at the time was Southern Pacific. If Southern Pacific didn't want it to happen, it didn't happen through the legislature or the governor. So they recognized that there had to be some sort of mechanism outside of the legislature, outside of the governor, where the people could have a say. The people could provide another check on our checks and balances in the state of California. That's why they put it in the Constitution. That's why they put it on the books. They wanted a democratic check on institutional corruption.
And so the disclosures that are typically required in an election, there are different rules. And so
isn't this the same nonsense that Sheng was trying to put out in the last weeks of the recall, where it was that big coal guy that really wanted her out of office because she was standing up to coal?
I'm telling you, Sheng, Pamela Price, and Barbara Lee all sound like the same person.
Well, Pam Price just sounds the angriest.
She called me a crime boss.
Hard to beat that.
People have gotten to Oakland. We now have Empower. We have Revitalize East Bay. We have Oakland.
Empower is a organization that Lauren Taylor founded after he lost the mayor's race to raise issues about Oakland. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, that's also how things work in a democracy.
Bay. We have Oakland's United for this, Oakland's United Foundation.
If you're against Pamela Price, you're corrupt. That's what she's saying.
You're a special interest.
Foundational, this and that. All of these, committees that are all funded by the same people. And more recently now, as we discussed earlier, we now have something called the Black Action Alliance, which has no relationship whatsoever to anybody in Oakland. Okay? But so let's talk about the one win and the many losses of Empower and Revitalize East Bay and all these AstroTurf PACs that came to Oakland in the November 2020.
You want to talk about the PACs that funded your campaign?
Or how about Shang's?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That came to Oakland in the November 2024 election. They won the recall. But when it comes to actual electing people, they lost, with one huge exception. Looking at the city attorney's race, Honorable Brenda Harbin Forte, former judge, ran for...
She hates your guts.
Honorable Brenda Harbin Forte, former judge, ran for city attorney. She had the support of Empower and Foundational Oakland and Revitalize, all the recall groups, and she lost. In District 3, Warren Logan had the same support of all these same groups. He lost. The at-large city council seat.
So what exactly is her point here? That these organizations weren't as influential as she says they were, but somehow they influenced the recall?
They won some, they lost some, but they were able to kick her ass out of office.
How about the reason that you got recalled is the public did not like the job you were doing? It's not that difficult.
Crime is out of control in that county, and people who don't even live in the state understand that.
It's a lot of crime now.
The at-large city council seat that was sought by former police chief LaRon Armstrong, and he had all the Empower and Revitalize East Bay and all these recall groups. He lost. The challengers to District 5.
What exactly, again, is she trying to go for here? That the recalls were rigged?
I don't think she understands. Listening to this podcast is like watching a drunk man drive down an icy road.
The challengers to District 5. There weren't powerful challengers there, but Noel Gallo, was able to keep his seat. Chris Moore was another rabid recaller that was really supported by these folks.
Rabid recaller. Great alliteration, Pammy.
Maybe she could do local news.
Supported by these folks. He ran for Board of Supervisors. He lost. He was eclipsed by John Bowders, again, who also got the support of the recall group.
Of course, it was the PACs that influenced the recall, not Pamela Price, in several interviews saying that the perpetrators of crime are the real victims.
You tried to flip the script. The people who were the actual victims of crime needed to check their privilege, and the people who were the ones that were punishing everyone with their criminality, they were the ones that the government needed to bend over backwards to help.
He lost. The one major exception was out of Ken Houston. And literally these folks, the recall people, spent thousands of dollars branding him as the son of Oakland and literally flooding our mailboxes with campaign mailers. They successfully buried the decades-long history that Kenny had of being known as a ladies' man with a history of exploiting women.
Whoa! You can't be elected no ladies' man.
He's a tomcat.
In 2016, Ken Houston opened his arms and his home to Celeste Guap, the young woman, 19 years old, at the center of the Oakland police, the Bay Area police sex trafficking ring. He became her agent, her boyfriend.
Boy, we are airing all the dirty laundry today.
She gives zero you-know-what.
Her boyfriend, he was 50 years old, and brought her into his house. In 2018, unhoused residents in Oakland accused Ken Houston of taking money that had been fundraised for them to help them and using it for his own personal expenses. In 2019, he was called out again around the homeless issues and the way that he engaged with the curbside communities. And he actually was accused of evicting women and children who were sleeping in their cars. And then he himself.
Boy, she's got a bone to pick with this guy.
She really does.
And then
everyone else got kind of a cursory review. This guy's getting a deep dive.
You know why? It's because he would go on TV, not just when he was running for city council, but before, and say, Pamela Price and Sheng Tower are making us unsafe.
I know that this woman is a college graduate who also went to law school and passed the bar. But doesn't she also sound like someone who suffered brain damage?
She called me a crime boss. And then he himself called them liars and thieves and addicts and drug dealers and rapists and criminals and child molesters.
Well, that's a portion of the homeless population.
A sizable chunk.
Arsonists and prostitutes.
How about that homeless encampment that's outside of 4 different Oakland schools that is rampant with prostitution? Something that your office didn't want to do anything about, Pammy.
And everyone in town knows about it.
The people that
I want to hear that run off again.
And then he himself called them liars and thieves and addicts and drug dealers and rapists and criminals and child molesters, arsonists and prostitutes.
And Pamela Price would call them our unhoused neighbors.
Good morning, good afternoon, good night.
The people that he's supposed to be helping. He's most known in Oakland more recently for running the Beautification Council, a nonprofit that had received literally thousands of dollars, millions of dollars actually, from the city of Oakland. In January of 2023, we discovered that he had an illegal contract with the Alameda County District Attorney's Office. I canceled that contract for $236,000. It was not approved by the Board of Supervisors. Therefore, it was illegal.
This is personal with her and this guy.
She's still going on about him.
Quite frankly.
Well, Johnny, there's just a small sampling of the weekly airing of the grievances that Pamela Price brings to pretty much me every week. I don't know if anyone's listening to this podcast besides me.
I don't think they are. She's just doing this for her and you. If you'd like to send us an email, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're monitoring the mailbag.
Will writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. Pamela, Name Your Prices podcast is awful. However, if she gets an interview from Shang and the Dongs from behind bars, it will finally break the top 1 million most listened to podcasts.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wouldn't be the first time someone's gotten dong behind bars. And Randy, if you want to go back and listen to the episodes that we did after both of them were rated, that's easy to do.
All you've got to do is go to KABC.com, click on podcasts.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Go to the Apple Podcast app, iHeart, Spotify, search for The John Phillips Show, hit subscribe. You can download all the episodes.
Absolutely.
Do a Google on the YouTube.
And he said absolutely.
Or get that KABC app. Search KABC AM in the Apple App Store, the Android Store. It's the easiest way to listen live to this radio station.
That,
and download all the podcasts.
How are
absolutely
you?
good.
Love to shake your hand.
Yes. It's been amazing.
In the meantime, what do you say we make a couple of listeners very happy?
How about this? 790 KABC welcomes Kids Bop Live, the certified Bop Tour at the Honda Center on September 20th. Tickets are on sale now at Ticketmaster.com, but right now, call in number 9 at 1-888-795-2222. Gets a 4-pack of tickets to the show. Tickets furnished by Live Nation. Good luck dialing.
And Randy, we have big news to make regarding the San Francisco Bay Area.
This is so exciting. We've been working on this for a long time, and we can finally announce that 2 weeks from today, Tuesday, April 1st, the John Phillips Show will be simulcast from noon to 3 live on KABC in Los Angeles and 810 KSFO in the San Francisco Bay Area. We're going live to the Bay. We're staying live in Los Angeles, and we're taking phone calls from Southern California and Northern California every single day.
Woo!
Think about how great this is. As you listen to us on the air in L.A. and San Francisco, You can have both sourdough bread and a tortilla with your lunch.
We're going to be covering everything that we cover on a regular basis, but now it's going to be live in both Southern and Northern California, talking about all the California issues, trying to make this a better place. We are so excited to bring this live every single day from noon to 3 on 790 KABC in Los Angeles and 810 KSFO in the Bay Area. It all starts Tuesday, April 1st. This is not an April Fool's joke.
We're going to be like Ron Owens, only hopefully we'll make it work. Yesterday, we told you that California Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara was speaking at a conference in Bermuda and not attending a state legislative oversight committee hearing where he was supposed to be grilled with questions about a new rate hike that's coming to California homeowners. Despite the fact that everyone involved in the process knew that Ricardo Lara was going to be gone. They specifically scheduled the hearing when they knew he would be out of the state of California. He has been asked about why he wasn't in attendance for this committee hearing over and over and over again by members of the California Press Corps. So far, he's not talking. And Randy, it doesn't look like that's going to be changing anytime soon.
I'm very kind of sketchy.
This is how it works with Ricardo Lara. Ricardo Lara does something stupid or selfish. Ricardo Lara gets asked to do an interview about it. Ricardo Lara says no, and then the story becomes Ricardo Lara won't do interviews.
That's pretty much his entire tenure as insurance commissioner.
And now he's pissed off KCAL. For more, here's KCAL 9.
And there are questions tonight about California's insurance commissioner and his work to protect insurance customers after our wildfires. KCAL political.
What work?
He's in Bermuda. He's
KCAL
parasailing.
KCAL political reporter Tom Waite here now with an update on State Farm's request for a large rate increase in Commissioner Ricardo Lara's trip last week to a resort with insurance executives.
Yeah, it's a lot going on.
Love that Pat Harvey dropped that he went to a resort.
By the way, yesterday we talked about Bermuda having a magazine specifically tailored to the insurance industry. A friend of mine who works in that world hit me up this morning and said that Bermuda is apparently where all of the reinsurance companies are based out of. That's why he was there. When insurance companies buy insurance policies, you're buying from a company who's headquartered out of Bermuda.
And do those companies have insurance policies that they go after and so on and so on and so on?
Where would they be headquartered? Guam?
That's actually a part of this story, that he went to the reinsurance conference.
Executives. Yeah, it's a lot going on here, Pat, and some questions we're going to try to get answered for everybody tonight. State Farm wants to raise rates for homeowners by 22%. After the fire.
After, they got a 20% raise a little more than a year ago.
Before these fires.
After the fires, Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara's job, it's to make sure that that request is essential and that it's fair to policyholders. And while all this plays out...
If that's his job, he has not been doing it.
No, he hasn't.
All this plays out, we've learned the commissioner went to Bermuda, as Pat said last week, at a resort with dozens of insurance executives. California Insurance Commissioner...
Bet you he didn't have to pay for even one of his drinks.
Oh, no, not even on the plane trip out.
California Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara is under new scrutiny over a trip he took to Bermuda last week for a conference of insurance executives. Lara's critics have at times accused him of being too close to the insurance industry. Carmen Balber with Consumer Watchdog tells us the timing was not ideal.
There's a couple things here. Certainly would be worse if it had been paid for by the insurance industry.
No, instead it was paid for what, by us?
Well, he's termed out. So let's say he has a campaign account. What's he going to use it for? He can't run for re-election.
But that's not really the main point. I think most Californians, especially those who are currently trying to recover from the tragedies in Los Angeles, would hope the insurance commissioner would be here at home helping them recover from those tragedies, not off on a junket in Bermuda.
Well, it's been really cloudy here, and Ricardo Lara needs to get some sun.
Oh, yeah. Can you imagine what the pool must look like at that resort?
We made multiple requests for an on-camera interview with Lara. He was supposed to speak with us over the weekend, but canceled.
Oh, no, you don't do that.
I'm surprised he even agreed to come on in the first place because that guy barely does press.
He was also asked to appear in Sacramento at a hearing with state lawmakers, but the request was made after he had already booked his trip to Bermuda. In a statement, a spokesperson told us this about the trip to Bermuda. Nearly 40% of the world.
You think he flies coach?
No.
So these campaign dollars could have gone to a first-class ticket and a fancy 3 or 4 night resort stay in Bermuda.
Well, think about this. You know how you get those mailers in your mailbox all the time from politicians running for office, or you see the ads on the radio or on television? Whenever you make a buy like that, that's tens of thousands of dollars. You're talking about a lot of money. For a statewide race, you're maybe even talking about millions of dollars spent. I'm sure all of those dollars are put on some credit card, and if you put that amount of money on a credit card, you have credit card points and airline miles out the wazoo. I'm sure none of them fly anything but first.
I never thought about that connection. I'd want to run for office just for the Amex points.
Yeah, no kidding.
In a statement, a spokesperson told us this about the trip to Bermuda. Nearly 40% of the world's reinsurance companies are based in Bermuda, paying out trillions of dollars in claims.
Hey, I got an idea. The next time the state of California is in a budget deficit, what if we pay for that with an Amex card, and then we can have enough points for everyone to fly first class?
I like that idea.
Including those for wildfires. Commissioner Lara delivered a keynote address aimed at guaranteeing insurance companies continue to write policies in California.
Unfortunately, this is not the first time, and certainly won't be the last, that we see the commissioner off on a foreign trip in an exotic locale at a quote-unquote insurance meeting that still raises eyebrows for consumers.
I mean, Ricardo Lara did not get to this job because he cares about insurance, knows anything about the industry. He's in it for the perks.
Oh, yeah. And if this industry is willing to put on junkets at exotic locations all over the globe, that's part of the reason why he ran for the office.
Lara is also facing another controversy, this one over State Farm's request to raise home insurance premiums by 22%. State Farm is scheduled to make its case for why they need the rate hike at a hearing on Friday. But Lara already announced he's giving what he calls provisional approval for the increase.
Of course.
And then instead of explaining himself, he cancels his interviews and doesn't show up to the oversight hearing.
In this case, consumers won a small victory because Consumer Watchdog has been urging the insurance commissioner to send State Farm's request to a public hearing for the last month now. That's what this order did. Said, I will not approve this rate increase until the company comes forward and justifies it at a public hearing.
That's kabuki. That is theater.
Yeah, he's already told them that he's inclined to approve it. He's not going to reverse himself.
I already said yes, but can we have a public hearing where you can explain to everyone why you need more money?
Isn't it supposed to go the other way around?
Where the company has to make its case and the public has a chance to respond.
Like it matters. Like any politician or bureaucrat has ever paid attention to public comment at any public hearing ever.
No, and to be fair to them, many of those public comments sound a whole lot like what we play you from the LA City Council, so who would pay attention to them?
Bottom line, it appears likely homeowner insurance rates will rise, but for who and how much is not clear.
You have to understand that the estimate right now is about $50 billion in losses, but we won't even know that until all the claims are filed. But when you have thousands and thousands of homes that have been destroyed, we know that it's gonna be very difficult. So insurers have to be able to predict what type of disasters may occur in California and then price that accordingly.
And they have somebody who's in that office that says you can price them for whatever you want because I think the whole state's going to burn down.
I still would love to know what his end game is. If he thinks he still has political viability in the state And if so, will the insurance industry finance his campaign? Because when you run for insurance commissioner, many of them pledge that they will not accept money from the insurance industry, including Ricardo Lara. He got caught doing that anyway. But if you're termed out as insurance commissioner and you're running for something else, then what's to say that you can't accept money from the insurance commission or insurance industry? Because you'll say, I'm not running to be insurance commissioner. I'm running to be lieutenant governor, or I'm running to be LA County supervisor. There's no connection between the insurance industry and those two offices. It's perfectly ethical. Maybe that's the play. I don't know.
State Farm also wants to be able to raise insurance rates for renters by 15%. State Farm warned state officials a year ago they need to raise their rates to keep up with claims. Pat?
All right. I know you're going to stay on top of this for us, Tom. Thank you.
There's the latest on Bermuda Boy.
I'll tell you, I don't know how that man's career is going to end, but I don't think it's going to be with a gold watch.
I have some ideas on how it's going to end.
You'll have to save those ideas for another day.
I'm very kind of sketchy.
If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're monitoring the mailbag.
Well, there's a lot of nice things being put in the mailbox today. Maria in Montebello writes in, congratulations. This is awesome. You two rock, bringing common sense to the Golden State. This is because John and I are going to be simulcasting on KABC Los Angeles and KSFO San Francisco starting on Tuesday, April 1st, every day from noon to 3. Bob writes in and says, congratulations on going live in the Bay Area. Since you already cover both LA and the Bay Area extensively, the show shouldn't change much. The show's not going to really change at all. Except John's going to have to pay attention to the clock.
That's going to be a big chore. It's going to be like potty training a child.